So my name is Andy Smithkin. As I've been working at Park Service for 12 years now. I got my background in geology, so studying volcanic hazards of a volcano called Nevado Sabancaya in Peru. I studied it all remotely, so using satellite imagery and ash hazard models and things like that. So I've never actually been in Peru, and I think that was the downside and was a really poor thinking on my choice on that little aspect there. But as I've been working at Park Service for over 12 years, worked previously at Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. I worked off and on for about 6 years up there in the Badlands. Then went out to Lake Meredith and Albate Flint Quarries National Monument in the Panhandle of Texas. By a show of hands, who's ever heard of Albate Flint Quarries National Monument? Got 3 hands. That's probably about the most I've ever seen. Because back when I worked out there in Albate Flint Quarries, it was the 9th least visited national park site in the country. I had about 415 at the time, so less than 5,000 people going there in a full year, compared to here at Capitol Reef, where we had 1.3 million people come out there last year. So regardless of what they say, not everything is bigger in Texas. And then I worked out at Carlsbad Caverns National Park as a permanent ranger. That's where I met my wife-to-be out there for over, worked out there for about 3 years. And then I've been working out here since October 2022. And I'm just a big national park buff, just absolutely love working in the National Park Service and going to see a lot of these really wonderful places. I've been to about 150 of the 431 national park sites that we have now. So, and hope to get to many, many more as my career keeps going on. So talking a little bit about what'll happen at Capitol Reef tomorrow. So we have 2 programs going on. So we'll have a geology talk taking place at the Fruity Campground at 3 p.m. We have it daily out there. Today was one of the few days that we missed it because we had a search and rescue going on, and it was all hands on deck to help out somebody today. We'll also have an evening program out there at 8:30 tomorrow on art in the park. So talking about some of the famous artwork that took place in the park and helped to inspire many others as well. And spoiler alert, there'll be a little bit of artwork today in this program too. So of course, for here we're talking a little bit about the National Park Service history. So we have been national parks for quite a few years now, and have just really grown and evolved over over 100 years that we have had the national parks. Currently, we have over 431 national park sites located in all 50 states, in many of the U.S. territories as well. So we could talk about all of those for just hours and days. So a lot of really good series online on TV that you can learn a lot about many of these other great sites. Since we kind of have limited time today, I like to describe this kind of session today as a crash course into the tip of the iceberg that is the National Park Service. So we're just going to touch a couple different things, get a little bit more in depth on things. We'll kind of do a progression going back in time and then working our way up to kind of the present and the future of the National Park Service, and kind of limb off a few places on there. So just if you have any questions, happy to take those, and there will be a little pause in the middle where I'll also open up for a few more questions as well from y'all. So kind of the inspiration for where the origins of the National Park Service begin, and you can probably talked about dozens of different people who would probably be sort of that first person who maybe sort of inspired the National Park Service or thing. A lot of people go towards George Catlin, and back in 1831, he was exploring out into the Dakotas. So going to check out, he was an artist, did lots of rendering of the native people who were up there in the Dakotas at the time, and really loved the wildlife as well. As he was going up there around that time, he was also noticing that Native Americans were being pushed further and further to the west as there was the expansion from Europeans and from Americans out from the east moving out to the west, and were pushing these people off of their tribal lands, hunting the animals and things like that. And one thing that he really pondered was if there could be a park, an area that was set aside where these people, these wildlife, everything can kind of remain the way that it was. And he kind of named it as a nation's park, something that can be not only for for that generation, but for future generations to come as well. So, of course, this was back in around 1831 when kind of this idea, this budding idea, started to come out. So now, does anyone know what the first nation's park is? Yes?
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone? Do we have any other? What was that?
Grant was the one who set it aside.
It was Grant. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and we'll get that into a little bit as well. Any other ideas? So it's actually not as easy as you may think. Now, Yellowstone is the first national park, which we'll get into. But you may say that those ideas were going back even further than that as well. Now, if you would talk to my wife, who worked out at Hot Springs National Park out in Arkansas, Hot Springs Reservation was one of the first parcels of land that was set aside. And with this, it was set aside to preserve not only the hot springs out there, but also the historic structures, the bathhouses and things that were making this area such a unique and special area. And one of the cool things about Hot Springs National Park now is that if you go there now, there's a big mountainous foresty area with little caves and stuff and hot springs that you can climb up and go around. Those places weren't even protected back then when this reservation was created. It was just around the bathhouses. When it became a national park, they added the park, so the actual foresty and sort of more natural features to the land as well. So kind of the first kind of thoughts were by Andrew Jackson, kind of preserving this area for not only its natural features, but its historic values as well. And then we get into Yosemite, by the Yosemite Grant. Now, Yosemite is set aside by President Abraham Lincoln, and on this it was deeded to the state of California to protect Yosemite Valley, the Mariposa Mariposa sequoia forests that were growing out in that land as well. So because this was all within the area of California, it was deeded to the state of California. So California would help to preserve and protect this particular type of landscape. So this was the first time that officially a park was created, set aside by the federal government. But then getting into Yellowstone itself. So when the Hayden expedition was by a group of explorers, artists who went into the Yellowstone area after hearing just some of these really wonderful features, hearing about these geysers, these great canyons, the wildlife that's just stampeding all over the place, to kind of know what is happening a little bit more out there in this land out here. So when the federal government started to kind of look into setting this aside as a park, it wouldn't be as easy as for Yosemite out in California. The proposed land would be on 3 different territories, so not an actual state at the time. And there was arguments going on between a couple of these territories, between Wyoming and Montana, as they're kind of arguing about different jurisdictions and lands on there as well. So kind of looking at what the Hayden expedition would do, they would go out, and he took these wonderful kind of original drawings and paintings of the landscape that he was seeing out here. So this is a rough painting. And I say that looking at just how beautiful that is. But taking this kind of rough kind of sketch, this idea, this thought into their minds, and then transforming it into something like this. So you still see this in museum out in Washington, D.C., where we have just these beautiful landscapes that were drawn out, and many of the thermal features out in Yellowstone itself. So the first national park is Yellowstone National Park, set out by Grant. So because this was on 3 different territories, could not just be set aside to one particular state, all the arguments. So this kind of made it to where it would be run by the federal government. So this kind of made our first national park out there with Yellowstone. But it wasn't until quite a long time till we got our next one. So I said that was in 1872, and then our next 5 national parks was Sequoia, Yosemite out in California, Mount Rainier in Washington State, Crater Lake in Oregon, and Wind Cave in South Dakota. So it took about 18 years before we got our next one, and then they started kind of following. We started getting more and more places out in the country. And some of the first people who were to protect these national parks was by the U.S. Army, so especially the Buffalo Soldiers. Charles Young was one of the first earliest superintendents out in Sequoia National Park, and under his jurisdiction out there helped to really set up to where curbing poaching that was going on, cutting down trees, foresting, having things just stolen out there, but also had kind of a thought of what maybe these national parks would be like. Started to set up infrastructure on those areas, and also taking his time out in Yosemite, set the first nature trail. Many natural parks have nature trails, and he set up the first nature trail in Yosemite National Park as well. Now, I have to say I'm a little bit biased. I have worked out Theodore Roosevelt National Park, so I think legally I'm required to talk a little bit about Theodore Roosevelt at some point during any talk. So kind of what got him, he's kind of known as the conservation president, so really working on preserving a lot of the landscapes. And what kind of really got him set up as a young man in his early 20s, he was a taxidermist, so he would do lots of hunting and had his own little natural history museum in his own house, even when he was a kid, of different animals that he would hunt. So he went out to hunt the American icon, the buffalo, the bison that was out in the West. Went out to North Dakota, and it took him almost a week to do so. If he would have been out there 1 year before, it probably would have took him just a few hours. In that amount of time, the U.S. Army was working to move more Native American people onto reservations at that time, and one of the best ways to do so was to unfortunately kill the bison. So there'd be many times when just hundreds to thousands of bisons would just be shot, even from outside your train, just to get rid of that food source for the native people. So when he went out there, it took him almost a week to do so. And if you see on this big pile, all these are bison skulls. So every single one of those is just a skull of a bison that was killed out there. So just knowing how long it took for him and just hearing just how quickly they were being diminished and being obliterated, it really made him concerned and make a thought for us losing that American icon of the bison just roaming through the Great Plains and things like that. So, well, you all kind of take a look at some of the things that Theodore Roosevelt did. I'll do one of my favorite quotes by Roosevelt itself. So, we have become great because of the lavish use of our resources. But the time has come to inquire seriously, what will happen when our forests are gone? When the coal, the iron, the oil, and the gas are exhausted? When the soils are still further impoverished and washed into the streams, polluting the rivers, denuding the fields, and obstructing navigation. So at this, thank you. And that concludes the talk, thank you. So, of course, when he became president after the assassination of McKinley, he really started to work and to preserve a lot of these different landscapes. And it wasn't until President Obama passed him in acreage for land set aside. So Theodore Roosevelt was really thinking about setting these lands aside for the public for now and for the future generations to come. So many national monuments, national parks, and things like that too. During his time in administration, kind of the view of the national parks kind of changed under his mind. He had been preserving these wonderful geologic landscapes with this wonderful biology and things like that. But then after hearing about the different archaeological resources that were starting to become plundered out in Mesa Verde in Colorado, started to set up for how can designate a national park that would preserve one of these more historic features where the main icon are these great bits of archaeology and history from hundreds to thousands of years ago. Under the old way that national parks were first thought of would just be on the natural and scenic beauty, not on the man-made beauty and architecture that would be made. So this happened after Mesa Verde was created, but the backbones were started that he made before Mesa Verde became, was to create a new act called the Antiquities Act. With this gave the president the authority to create a national monument. So it was to set aside a piece of land that could be on the natural, the scenic beauty, but could be on the historic, could be on the man-made side as well. And some of these on much smaller areas, or just maybe preserving one sort of iconic feature. Devil's Tower in Wyoming is the first national monument that was created by the Antiquities Act, just saving the area right around Devil's Tower, this big volcanic neck. This was very important not only to the people who had gone out there, but the Native American people who were out there as well, who considered this land sacred and still consider it sacred. In fact, the National Park Service closes down climbing on the mountain for several times during the year so that Native people can go out there and can still celebrate that landscape without having people climb on it and do other things as well. So kind of the Antiquities Acts in history, so kind of getting on to one of our little branches here. So since the Antiquities Act was created by Roosevelt, 18 of our 21 presidents since then have used the Antiquities Act. The most monuments that were created was by President Barack Obama with 29. Most recent one actually just happened about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, which was the Springfield race riots out in Springfield, Illinois. The smallest is Stonewall. Now there are smaller national park sites, but that was the smallest one created with the Antiquities Act, so just around 1/10 of an acre, so very, very small area of land. And then the largest one, Papahanaumakuakea Marine National Monument, set aside by George W. Bush, which is almost 90 million acres of marine sanctuary out in the Pacific. So does anybody know what the difference between a national park and a national monument is? Yes?
Created by the president, and there's a lot of conflict over that, and whether, president can do that. The other is Congress, and it's set in stone by law.
Excellent. Yes. With the national monument can be created by an act by a president. So setting aside the land there, or using the national parks can be set aside with an act of Congress. So those are kind of the two main ways that you can get the national parks and the national monument. Now, what's also interesting is that many monuments also become national parks as well. Over 25 national monuments have now been designated as national parks. And what's the difference in how they are preserved and protected is not very much. They just get a lot more visitation out there. I was in Carlsbad Caverns when White Sands National Monument became White Sands National Park. They said the big difference is that they had to change the entrance sign to say National Park instead of National Monument. They had to change their passport stamp, and it's really, really busy. So those are some of the main differences out there. No additional funding, no additional staffing, nothing changes. So that's why I say when you go out and if you see national park, national monument, national historic site, all those other places, check those out. Those are still wonderful as well. So you can still see a lot of really, really cool hidden gems that aren't just the 63 national parks as well. And of course, now kind of getting to our first ranger. Rangers have been called since kind of the early 1900s, so people have called them rangers, have had kind of the uniform and thing. However, officially having a title, official park ranger, was not established until the late 1950s. So it's quite a long time afterwards. It comes from all walks of life, all parts of the country as well. Does anyone know who this young man is here? Gerald Ford would be the president. So started out as a park ranger out there. And kind of who we are kind of on today, kind of showing our demographics is that a majority are over the age of 40. Today I am 38 years old today, so I'm celebrating my birthday out here with the Entrada Institute, but I'm still in this one. I'm not moving up to that one just yet. I'm fighting as hard as I possibly can. Kind of our education levels, that when people ask how do you get your park ranger job, mostly you say you have to have some sort of a degree. Getting a bachelor's degree, you can get in at a high school level, kind of harder to get in that level, but you usually have to have some sort of a degree on there. And kind of showing our trend that we are primarily male, but kind of working with the trend is getting more and more female on there, but we're still not near that 50% point on there. So still majority males versus females in the National Park Service industry too. So here I'll kind of set us up for a little pause if you have questions for me, kind of what it's like to be a National Park Service ranger. And kind of I'll answer kind of one question that we get pretty commonly that I'll get at the front desk or giving programs or thing is, how did you get your job? So for myself, as I said, my background is in geology. So I had so I got my bachelor's degree in geology at Central Washington University, got my master's degree in volcanology, so studying volcanoes at University of Buffalo in Buffalo, New York, because there's so many volcanoes out in Buffalo, New York. But you can have just about any sort of degree to kind of become a park ranger itself. One of my favorite rangers, who's I think was one of the smartest person I ever know, got a degree in graphic design as a comic book writer. And he is a genius. He gives some wonderful, wonderful programs. Maybe kind of seeing a little bit outside the box there just allows him to get those really, really cool programs. But I'm from Tacoma, Washington originally. I've never worked in a national park in Washington State. This is the closest I've been to home since I've been in the National Park Service. So we travel all over the country. So does anybody have any questions for what it's like to be a park ranger? Yeah.
So we need to go to the microphone.
Don will get you every time.
Really appreciated so far your presentation. But I was wondering, you've been to a lot of places, served a lot of places.
Yeah.
What is it like being a ranger in Capitol Reef as compared to some of the other places you've been to?
Yeah.
Especially with the scenic drive closed this year and things of that nature. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, working at every park is completely different. Like working up Theodore Roosevelt, I was working primarily in fees. So I was in kind of the fee department, worked at the entrance station, also supervised those people as well. So kind of having that experience of being that frontline person, but not really getting out in the park, it was definitely a little bit different. Just being stuck in what we like to call the penalty box, which is that entrance station. But it's a lot of fun because you get to talk to people, and when I would interview and hire people, I'd say, which is a pretty close number, is about 90% of the people, you're going to be the only person they talk to. You're going to be the only ranger that they ever see in the park. So you're making that first impression, even if it's just for a few minutes and you're taking their money. Hopefully that's a really good impression of taking their money. But you just kind of have that different, seeing someone for the first time and then they're off. I also like to describe myself, I am definitely an introvert. So I'm definitely a pretty shy person. And here I am talking in front of a whole bunch of strangers, which would be terrifying. But they say most rangers are also introverts as well. Being out here, I did not move forward. Yeah, so being out here in Capitol Reef, I say it's a whole different crowd that's out here. We have a lot more tour buses. We have a lot more foreign visitors out here, which is also really cool as well. We have many of our park maps and unigrids, so the brochures are we have in, I think, 15 different languages, something like that. So we really cater to the diverse group who comes out here. So it's been a lot of fun.
I'll do this as diplomatically as I can. Are you ever provided guidance about what you can and can't talk about?
Yes, yeah. So guidance kind of about what we can or can't talk about. I'll go yes, but then I can't talk about it anymore. Yeah. So it's like with some things, there's definitely the kind of for your eyes only. It's working in the government is not as like cat and mouse in the shadow stuff as you may think as there are on the movies or things like that. So transparency is definitely a big thing that we do. But one thing that we say, especially with rangers, is that we try to keep a lot of our opinions to ourselves, especially when we're in uniforms or things like that. Of course, everyone knows there's an election year going on. Who I'm going to vote for, you all don't get to know. I don't get to tell you. And not because I'm in the uniform. I don't want to tell either. That's just me. That's just me. So I'm just going to be myself. But we also do have guidance on that as well. So we can't hint or do anything like that. But that's also to protect ourselves and the agency too, versus being like, oh yeah, I was at that ranger program and they said blah blah blah, something like this. So and then otherwise I'd had that disclaimer: the opinions of Ranger Andy are not necessarily the opinions of the National Park Service. Oh no, he's coming up again.
I told you I'd fill things in.
Yeah.
National monuments are somewhat easy to come into being.
Yes.
Are there any national parks in the pipeline right now?
So I'll talk just a little bit about that, kind of what the future, so where the next national park may be. But especially with the national monuments and then also with the national parks, you're going to hear from like advocacy groups, the friend groups, and just kind of the local areas for many of these places are really pushing to get designated as national monuments, to get the national parks as well. Talk a little bit about Capitol Reef as well. This would not have become a national monument or a national park if it wasn't for good people who lived out here in Wayne County. Otherwise, this would still be one of those hidden gems that who knows what it would have looked like. So if there's certain places around where you live or had been where you go, this would be such a great place. I think this should be protected a little bit differently or maybe get under different things. That can certainly be pushed to kind of get onto those ways. I think one of the funnest ones since I've been in the National Park Service it's called a Waco Mammoth National Monument in Waco, Texas. It was a city park. State park or city park for an awful long time, with the museum out there with these wonderful mammoth bones, and then when it became a national monument after the town of Waco kind of pushed to have that designated, and when the chief of interpretation, who kind of came out there, kind of gave like one of the first speeches. He said, "This is the best place I've ever worked at. All we had to do is slap an arrowhead on it, and we're done. It's from all your hard work that this place is hopefully going to stay around forever."
Couple of questions. One is, what is the National Park Service going to do in terms of trying to limit the number of people that are visiting the parks? I mean, we're loving the parks to death.
Yeah.
First question. The second question, to follow up with Don's question about what you can and can't talk about.
Yeah.
Are there certain areas we'll use Capitol Reef for example, that you don't encourage people to go to? Like in Virginia Park, in Canyonlands, for example, a few years ago, I went there and it was kind of, I was told that you can go there, but we really don't want a whole lot of people going there for obvious reasons. So can you talk about those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That is one of the things I can talk about. So of course, kind of. And this will also kind of be, once again, talked about. Everyone's doing really good on kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen a little bit later in the talk too. But visitation is increasing, getting more people. One thing that we had, that's happening on Arches is the timed entry. Going in, just having kind of those windows and things. Happening up at Rocky Mountain just this year is also happening up in Mount Rainier. I'm not sure if there's other parks that are also going to be doing that as well. But just having those different timed entry, you see, does have reductions to where people can actually get to the trailheads, can get to the scenic views on some of these iconic places that otherwise you can't get to. I remember going to Arches and when I was out in Buffalo, and we did this great road trip from Buffalo going all the way out west to Yosemite and then coming back, but stopping at tons of parks. We went to Arches, and the thought was to go do Delicate Arch. I was the only American in the caravan. About 8 European, Iranian groups that we had out there. And we went up there, and the parking lot, you couldn't even park up there. We circled around, went to Balanced Rock, couldn't park there, went to Devil's Garden. We finally got a parking spot where we got to hike. But that was about 10 years ago. And it's even crazier than that. So kind of having those different timed entries is kind of one way that hopefully will kind of reduce the numbers, keep it so that people can still enjoy them, but without having the crowds, so being able to have all those access and things. And now again, the second question about kind of like the hidden things or things that we can or can't talk about, how we kind of reduce numbers or things like that. So on some of those, it could be like different archaeological sites. So like we have 3 different classifications of archaeological sites. Class 1 is where we encourage you to go, like the petroglyph panel, going out to the Gifford House, so going out to some of these historic structures. Class 2 arch sites would be if you would know about them, and it's kind of more of a common knowledge where you can ask about them and we can go, okay, yeah, here's how you can get to them. I wouldn't be able to say it on like a presentation like this, but if you were to say, how do I get to this, then I can go, okay, yep, I can tell you exactly how to get to there. And then finally, the class 3 are the ones where we don't tell anybody about them to help preserve and protect them as much as we possibly can. To where even if I were to go see them, I wouldn't be able to run up to Ranger Katie and go, Katie, I found this out here, you should see it. I would have to tell our archaeologists about this, and maybe they would go, okay, yeah, that's actually a class 2. Katie, I can. So kind of getting into those things as well.
Where does Fremont Freddy fit into those categories?
What was that?
Where does Fremont Freddy fit into those categories?
Am I going to be really bad if I say I don't know Fremont Freddy?
No, but I understand that people are discouraged from going to his site, the petroglyph. We'll leave it at that. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard that one. I'm saying.
No, I don't know much more than that.
Yeah. That's the first time I hear about this. I don't know either. Yeah. All right. So thank you all for your questions there. We're going to keep on going a little bit. So keep on going with our story. So kind of getting on to after the Antiquities Act, after getting many of our some of our first national parks and things like that. When the first visitors came to a lot of our national parks, it was definitely a lot of a different experience going to any national park. Some of the early visitors would spend kind of a short stay would be about 2 days. Sometimes it would be 5 or more days in a single national park. So really kind of exploring a lot of those areas. Oftentimes, when you got off the train, you were corralled and grabbed by different groups and say, all right, you're going to come join our tour group. You're going to come eat from our food. You're going to sleep in our beds and things like that. So almost just grabbed, and any ideas of what you wanted to do was set up by your guide who you first met the moment you stepped off the train on there. And sometimes the amenities were pretty rough to where it would just be sleeping truly outdoors, being under maybe just a canvas flat tent, not really too much more than that. One of the what we call what some of the founding fathers of the National Park Service. So Stephen Mathers, he was a millionaire, and he went out to Europe with his wife and saw many of the kind of European parks and things that were set aside at the time, and just saw how the transportation was set, how access, how there were chateaus, there were hotels, there were all these different places where you can stay, have comfort, have a hot meal before going out to explore these natural places. And I just really love his quote with, "Scenery is a hollow enjoyment for the tourist who sets out in the morning after an indigestible breakfast and a fitful night's sleep on an impossible bed." And I think that doesn't sound too bad to me, to be honest. But kind of seeing that kind of push with Congress and became one of the first superintendents of the park. We kind of also see getting into creating the National Park Service as well. So with him, kind of helped to set up the different routes and different things that you can get, the amenities to get into the national parks, and when you're there, setting up concessions, and just really kind of setting up for expanding the National Park Service as we know it as well. And of course, under his term, we had the Organic Act in 1916, when we officially became the National Park Service. So protecting those national monuments and national park sites, including Hot Springs Reservation, which still hadn't been designated as a national park yet, but putting that in the National Park Service as well. So kind of setting up our legislative bodies and how we act and what we do as the National Park Service as well. This also kind of expanded more parks out into the east. Most things had been out to the west in the Rocky Mountains and in the Great Plains, but started to set up things out east. So with Shenandoah, Great Smoky Mountains, just Acadia had been a national park before that. So that has been the only thing out east until kind of this expansion looking at those things as well. In the 1930s, the National Park Service also gained a lot of the monuments and memorials around Washington, D.C., and different areas that were set up under the War Council. So they say different battlefield parks also got included into the National Park Service. So kind of expanding the amount of parks that we're also preserving. So under this act, we started to really tell a lot more of the kind of closely related story. So kind of what makes us as Americans. So kind of telling our story with the good and the bad in many times as well. And of course, Capitol Reef can fit in there too. So while you may know a lot of this is kind of also for my evening program is on this as well. So want to let the visitors who are coming in from all over the country kind of know a little bit about our park as well. So you can kind of show how when we kind of had the idea for setting up and preserving this really beautiful, iconic area down in southern Utah, and how we had many pushbacks. It's hard to get the national park out here. We had people coming in from Zion and from Yellowstone to kind of observe the land and see if this would be something that would be could be set aside as a national monument or as a national park as well. So it wasn't until Franklin Roosevelt at that time, after setting aside first as a state park, very small area, but then expanding that into the national monument of over 37,000 acres, kind of going from our boundaries to just north of Hickman Bridge, going down to the Capitol Gorge region as well. And then in the mid 1950s, this is kind of coming after the conclusion of World War II in the 40s, was just seeing that after that, the highways, the infrastructure, the roads connecting many of these iconic places start to improve the highway systems and things. So with these highways, with access to cheaper and more reliable motor vehicles, people were traveling all over the country to see these wonderful places. And as we were continuing to see more and more things, there was just less and less opportunities for people to have the amenities that we felt people were deserving to see when they visited these national park sites. So it was set up for a 10-year mission called Mission 66, so that by the year 1966, when we had our 50th birthday, we would have a lot better infrastructure for the people who would come out to visit these iconic places. So over the next 10 years, I started to try to increase staffing in the national parks, the different roadways into the national parks, hotels, concessions and things, and just these different amenities. So by the time 1966 rolled out on our 50th birthday, over 111 visitor centers were either completed or were under construction due to Mission 66, including right out here in Capitol Reef National Park. Our visitor center, which still stands today, is a Mission 66 structure, has been redone and revamped many times in between, but got its its original funding under the Mission 66 mission. So it helps to show what this helped to set up out here in Capitol Reef National Park as well. So it did quite a few things that we still have today. The Fruita Campground was under Mission 66. Loop A and B of the campground was completed for Mission 66. Loop C in the campground came, I believe, in the 1990s, if I remember correctly. Closed the Capitol Gorge Road and helped to set up the highway going along the Fremont Canyon, now State Route 24 going through there. As I said, it was a crash course through the tip of the iceberg for the National Park Service. So many things that you could talk about, and just try to touch on a few of the ones, but you can talk about so many of these different things that affect all the different parks, or also affect out here in Capitol Reef National Park as well. So just many different things, but you see that we have progressed from being out on picnic tables with bears all around for our iconic photos to having children come out to the national parks. So I think that is a big upgrade to getting the children out to the national parks, especially when we don't have the bears too close, so that we're not feeding the children to the bears. And of course, with great power, all these different things that we have, comes great responsibility. So if we don't set up these protections and how we can help protect and preserve these places for years to come, we can have problems in the National Park Service as well. This is a place that is out in South Dakota, near the Black Hills, called Fossil Cycad National Monument. It was set to preserve these beautiful cycad forest trees. So these trees and these fossils of these stumps and the limbs of these trees. It was set out in the 1920s. Within 10 years, every single visible fossil cycad that was on the surface was taken away by fossil hunters, by excavators, and things like that, to where there was not a single fossil cycad on the top. What had happened is that when they declared it as a national monument, that drew attention to people before the infrastructure and the preservation can happen. It was run partially by Wind Cave National Park and Badlands National Park to help preserve these areas, but with not having the infrastructure and the way to go, was not able to preserve it in time. So it's the monument that used to be, so that by 1957, it was delisted as a national monument. You go there, still just see just an empty field where all those cycads used to be, but are no longer there anymore. Just specimens are all we have in different museums or sitting on shelves in different people's places. Don, I know you have one back there. Please return it. And of course, talking about like the increased visitation that we had out there too. Said 99.99999% of all visitors are outstanding, wonderful, love them. It's that 0.000001 people who maybe don't appreciate to preserve and protect these places as much as you'd want them to do. You can find this on the National Park Service vandalism page. So these are some pretty good examples. Out in Oregon Pipe Cactus, where graffiti has been spray painted onto the rocks out there, where saguaro tree and saguaro cactus National Park in Tucson, Arizona has just been cut to pieces. And right here in Capitol Reef National Park, where names have been carved right next to petroglyphs that are hundreds to even thousands of years old as well. And in the national parks, we're also seeing increase in visitation. Visitation is just going up and up and up. So we're seeing more and more people, which is always really good. We love seeing visitors come out to these special places and enjoying them and things like that. But just take a look at how much we had 20 years ago, about 550,000 people in the year. As of just 5 months this year, almost the exact same amount. So visitation is not slowing down. It is busy. It gets busy at these national park sites as well. And at the same time, staffing within the National Park Service with different rangers are also decreasing. Over the past 10 years within the National Park Service, visitation has increased across the board 13% over the past 10 years. Some, obviously us, we have increased quite a bit more than that 10%, than that 13%. Meanwhile, at the same time in that 10 years, staffing has gone down about 12 to 15% across the National Park Service as well. So we're having fewer rangers to patrol and to kind of keep an eye on people, make sure we don't do these bad things as well. So sometimes it could feel a lot like we're the Lone Ranger just standing in the horde of visitors that are coming out our way as well. But we always try to think, we always try to keep a positive attitude. As I said, so many people really love and care about these parks that we're at as well. And they have a really good benefit on the local areas around as well. So today in the National Park Service, we have 63 national parks, officially 431 different national monuments, historic places, battlefields, parks throughout the entire country as well. Protecting over 85 million acres of land on the surface, over 20,000 employees, and have over 280,000 volunteers who come to dedicate time in their national parks as well. As of 2022, this is the closest figure I could find, unfortunately. So we had about 312 million visitors to our national parks, with an economic value to the local towns that are around here of almost $24 billion. It kind of shows a breakdown of where a lot of this money goes out to. See, like obviously hotels, camping, picking up food, taking gas, obviously, to travel between these places, coming home, airfare. So just many things that helps to support local jobs all around these national park sites as well. And tomorrow, we turn 108 years old. It's our birthday. We're 108 years old tomorrow, August 25th. And oh boy, do we still look good on there. And maybe looking where the next national park will be as well. So we have a couple contenders. So while I'm not sure exactly where the next site is going to be, one that's really getting a lot of news is the Ocmulgee Mounds, which is in Georgia, that preserved Native American sites that are over 12,000 years old. So some of the first people in the continent of North America. So this may be a national park. Craters of the Moon National Monument and Preserve in Idaho, protecting these large volcanic fields, or even Chiricahua National Monument in southeast Arizona is also getting a lot of words on potentially that may be a national park. You get that different nomination to that as well. So what I always wonder is kind of where we're going to go with next in the National Park Service. And some things we can predict with, you get rumblings of where the next national monument is going to be, maybe the next national park. But who knows what the next thing is going to be, so that we can set up these different places for rangers like myself and for future rangers to come as well. So on behalf of Capitol Reef National Park, thank you for coming out to the program today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer for you.
Nice socks.
Yeah, those are nice socks. I gotta say, I'm jealous of my son. Those are not regulation socks.
Oh, they're not.
No, I've been pushing for it for years. I wish I would.
Keep on it.
Yes.
Andrew, a couple things.
Yeah.
One, we have some comments and questions from our Facebook
Yeah.
viewers, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You've experienced several national parks now. What's your career goal?
Yeah, my career goal is that I love being an interpretive ranger, so giving the talks and presentations. I've been a supervisor, kind of as my collateral duties out here. I hope to just continue to be a supervisor as we go on, maybe even be a chief of interpretation, so being the person who's in charge of the interpretive programs at a national park as well. So I would just love to do something like that.
Okay. Sue Fritzke, of course, who was the most recent park superintendent, said that Dinosaur National Monument gets twice the funding that Capitol Reef does. that just a reality, or should we be concerned about that?
There are, so with May places, sometimes it has to do with visitation, the resource that they're protecting. It can just be really hit or miss where different funding goes to different parks. For example, one thing we looked at with Arches National Park is that they had roughly the same visitation, right around 1.3, 1.4 million visitors coming out to that park. Here we have 5 permanent park rangers, lots of seasonals and interns as well. Out at Arches, I think they have 30 permanent park rangers. So same visitation, lot different staff. So not really sure why those numbers are. You'd think it would come with maybe the size of the park, the objects that they're trying to do. Not really sure kind of where those come from.
Maybe if the reef becomes the emblem, then as Arches has, there's
Got to get on that license plate, Don.
Just one last thing. Bill Inglesby said that the water purification plant in Fruta, that was part of the Mission 66.
Oh, yeah, excellent.